Okay, thank you so much for coming to the second drop-in sessions in week 4. So yesterday we have discussed the different example, the third example for the momentum transport, which is the flow of an incompressible liquid in an annulus, basically. Okay, so we have shown you what are the differences with the flow through a circular tube. Okay, and I'm sorry guys, because I don't know, my neighbor in here is making a noise every day. I don't know, they are repairing something, so I'm sorry that you have to bear with the noise that you hear in here. Okay, the background noise. So we have gone through and then we describe. So the difference between this one with the flow through a circular tube is that the boundary conditions are different. Okay, all the derivations are the same, but since we are taking the coordinate to be different, we are taking it at this particular point with the z directions opposite to the case for the flow through a circular tube. Then we notice that there is a difference in terms of the modified pressure. Okay, so the modified pressure sign, instead of the of minus in flow through a circular tube, it becomes positive in this particular example. Okay, because of the different in terms of the original coordinates where you put in the directions of the z. The z in the flow through a circular tube is going down, but the z on the flow through an annulus is basically going up. So then when you solve, you use about two boundary conditions. So this boundary condition and the boundary condition, then you get everything. Okay, once you get everything, then you can get the average velocity and the mass rate of flow. Okay, and then I have gone gone with you that we basically validate the velocity distribution profile that in the beginning we don't know, and then also we also validate the momentum flux distribution. So when we put in this shear stress at R equal KR, we know that this part, the term in the bracket, is the one that determines the negative or the positive value for this shear stress. So we know that for K, let we assume that K is equal 0.2, then it will be negative. For basically for K equal 1, or basically in the case where it is R, then it's going to be positive. So we know that there is a shift in the sign, or in the sign of the value for the shear stress from the negative to the positive, because it will become 0 when the velocity is reaching the maximum in here. Okay, so up to this particular point we have explained everything, but you have to go again through these derivations to make sure that everything is clear. Okay, then next one, what we're going to discuss is the Hi Rusiraka, you can hear me clearly, yeah? If anybody cannot hear me clearly, then you let me know. Good afternoon, Panchali. So for the drop-in session today, what we will discuss is the flow of two adjacent immiscible fluids. So let's imagine that we have a flow of two adjacent immiscible fluids. So there is a phase that is basically more light than the other phase. So if you imagine you have an oil and you have a water, you know that oil and water does not mix, right? They form a separate phases. So you imagine that you have this kind of situations where this time is a problem situation. So you have this kind of a pair of horizontal plates. So you imagine that this have a shape like what I showed you in here. I think that will be better. So this one is a plate. So you can visualize it better in here. So the directions is on the z directions. Okay, and then we want to consider this particular scenario, and then we take in for this example, we consider that there is a two immiscible incompressible liquids which are flowing in the z directions in a horizontal thin slit of length L and width W. So the length in here will correspond to the L in here. So the plate has a length of L, okay, and then it has a width of W in here, okay, and then it also has a thickness of, if we see in here, 2b. So the thickness in here is 2b, because we take that the distance from this particular things from this particular plane to this particular plane will be B, and then from this particular plane to this particular will be B as well. And then in order for us to simplify our next steps, we take the origin of the coordinates of 0, 0, and 0 in this particular point. Okay, this particular point is the entrance of the slit basically. Okay, and then we take it in the middle, in the center of the slit, so in between the parallel plates, exactly in here. Okay, and then we define that basically the flow goes in the z directions is z, and then the one that is going up in here is x, and then we have, if you can visualize the other one, okay, if I see it in here, if I see it in here, then the other one should be on the other perpendicular to the x, and z is the y directions, right? Okay, so now to make our life simple, we assume that the slit is half filled with fluid 1, so fluid 1 is in the bottom, and then it's half filled with fluid 2. So the less dense one is on top, the more dense one is on the bottom in here. Okay, and then at this particular time, we don't know whether the velocity will be maximum at the top or in the bottom. What we do know is basically just that we have two boundary conditions. We have two interface. One interface is where the solid is in contact with the liquid in the bottom in here, and the velocity should be 0 because the slit does not move. Okay, and then the one on the top in here, okay, the velocity should be 0 as well because the slit also does not move on the top in here. Okay, so what do we do? So what we do is basically we just go and then we take shell elements. The shell elements will have the same shape as your system, but because in here we need to check the postulation. So the postulation in here will be that the velocity in the z direction will be a function of x. Okay, so I don't put it in here, the postulation, because I assume that, but at this particular time, at this example, you guys already know basically that the Vz is a function of x. Okay, and then the Vx will be equal to 0 because there is no flow in the x directions, and then Vy will also be equal to 0 because there is no flow in the y direction. Okay, so because the velocity in the z direction varies as a function of x, that means you have to take the shell element. In this case is a fluid, in this case is a liquid, okay, with the thickness of delta z, and then you need to basically draw the shear stress that operates in this one. So there are one shear stress that operates at the plane of z equals 0. There is another one again that operates at z equal L, and then there is another one that is going up, okay, and then the one that are going from the surface up. Okay, once you get that thing, then you know that you can break it down through 4 contributions. The rate of the z momentum in across surface at z equals 0, rate of z momentum out across surface at z equal L, rate of z momentum in across surface at x, rate of z momentum out across surface at x plus delta x. And then we also need to account for the gravity force, but because the movement is in this particular directions, that is basically making a 90 degrees angle with the directions of the gravity, meaning that we have a 0 gravity force in the directions of the flow. Okay, so everybody gets it. That is very important because it's basically a horizontal movement. So the gravity does not apply when you have a horizontal movement because it makes a 90 degrees angle with the gravity. Then we can now check the shear stress area. So for this particular shear stress, the area that it operates will be W multiplied by delta x. Okay, then you multiply by the shear stress, and then the one on in the end in here will be the same as well, but you inspect it at z equal L, and then the one that operates from the bottom to the up, that will be W multiplied by L. Okay, and then the one on top as well, the area will be the same, but they are inspected at a different location. So one is at X, the other one is at X plus delta X, right? So if you go and use the same momentum balance that you have before, you can plug it in, and then you can break down this every shear stress in here in terms of their components. Okay, so for example, for the one ZZ in here, we know that basically it will have a pressure contribution because the shear stress operates perpendicular to the surface. So that's why we have this pressure, okay, and then this shear stress ZZ, and then rho multiplied by the VZ and VZ, okay. And then for the other one, we don't have a pressure term in here, right? So this is what is the postulation that I showed you before in this one. This is the postulations that we showed you before. If we start on putting it into the general Newton law of viscosity, the second term can be neglected because it will be zero, because we are dealing with the incompressible fluid, okay? And then we know that there is Vz is not a function of z, okay? And then this Vx will be equal to 0, but this second term is not, okay? Then if we continue again and again, and then we know that this pressure is also a function of z. Why? Because if there is no pressure, then that means there is no flow. So you need to have a pressure to have a flow. So that's why the pressure is in the z direction. Okay. Once we continue in here, then we know that because the Vz is not a function of z, that means the Vz at z equal 0 will be the same as with the Vz at z equal L. So that means these two will cancel each other. As a result, we have only a pressure term. Okay, and then we will simply have these particular equations in here that we can convert it into the differential form. Okay, then we integrate for both phase 1 and phase 2. So even if you take the shell elements in the location of the phase 1, that will be the same with the shell elements in the fluid 2 as well. Okay, because it's the same. That means, but except that you will have two different equations. The first one comes with the first constant, and then the second one comes with the second constant. Okay. Then the boundary conditions in here, the BC one is at x equals 0, the shear stress should be continuous. So this will be the applications of the boundary conditions that we mentioned before in the week 2 and I think in the week 2. So the first boundary conditions will be the no slip condition. So if you have an interface between your solid and liquid, then the velocity of your liquid will be the same with the velocity of the solid with which the liquid is in contact with. Okay, and then if you have an interface between the liquid and the gas, then the shear stress can be taken equal to 0. So if you have an interface between the liquid and the liquid, that means the shear stress and the velocity should be continuous. So by the sake of these boundary conditions, basically, when we plug into these equations in here, okay, then we plug it into the second equations as well, and then we equate each other. Then we know that this constant will be equal to this constant, and then we can take it simply as the C1 without the superscript because they are the same. Okay, so once you put that thing, you will get this particular equations. Then you can substitute the Newton's law of viscosity. Once you have the Newton's law of viscosity, you need to notice that the Newton's law of viscosity will be different for the different phases, because the viscosity of the first phase and the velocity will be different with the viscosity in the second phase and the velocity in the second phase as well. Okay, then once you integrate in here, you will get this, and then of course for the first liquid phase you will have another constant, whereas for the second phase you will have a velocity profile with the different constant, right? Now, why we in here we have a three constant C1, C2, and C2 superscript 1, C2 superscript 2, basically, right? So if we have a 3 constant, meaning we have to have 3 boundary conditions to solve the value of the C1, C2 first superscript, and then the C2 double superscript. Okay. So if you have a second order ordinary differential equations, meaning you need to have a 2 boundary conditions, right? If you have 2 second order ordinary differential equations, meaning you have to have 2 multiplied by 2 boundary conditions, so you need to have 4. Okay. If you have like 1 second order ordinary differential equations plus 1 first order ordinary differential equations, because if you go with the chemical engineering modeling and you will come across a system where you need to solve several ordinary differential equations simultaneously, meaning that you also need to know how many boundary conditions that you need to connect your physical situations with your mathematical solution. Okay. Now, from the BC2, this is also a continuous. This is also the third general boundary conditions that we came across with this example. So this one is basically telling us that the velocity should be continuous at the interface between the liquid to liquid. So that the interface between that liquid 1 and liquid 2 will be at x equals 0, right? So the velocity will be similar. So if you plug into here, then you will know that basically the C2 superscript will be equal to the C2 double superscript, and that will be equal to C2. So as a result, then you can simply change the C2 superscript and the C2 double superscript with C2. Okay. Now, after you get that thing, you substitute it back again. Then you can also substitute the other BC. When you substitute the other BC, you will get this one, this equation. I call it A. And then from the BC4, you will get another equation, you call it B. Okay. So A minus B will be equal to this. And then as a result, you will get C1. Once you get a C1, you can substitute this back to A. Okay. Then you will be able to recover C2. Okay. Then you can put in your C1 into your shear stress, basically. So you only have one momentum flux profile, and this momentum flux profile basically will cover the whole shear stress from the top to the bottom. So from the x equal minus b to x equal b. Okay, so that this we know after we solve the boundary conditions, basically. So we in the beginning we also don't know, right? In the beginning we don't know. Then at the same time again, you can solve for the velocity in the liquid one, which is quite straightforward in here. But for the velocity profile in the second liquid, you need to do a little bit of mathematical manipulations in here in order for you to recover this particular form in here. Okay. Now, once you recover these things, then you will be able to get the VZ1 and then the VZ2. Then from the intuitions, we will know that the velocity will be maximum at one particular point in between x equal minus b and x equal b. That particular point will be the particular point where the shear stress will be equal to 0, right? In the beginning, I also don't know why this is positive in here and why this is negative. So what I know is when I plug in this equation. So for example, I try at x equal minus b, then that will be less than 0, right? So if I put it in here, that will be negative. And then likewise, if I put in x equal b in here, I put in the shear stress, then I know that this value will be higher than 0, right? Then you may ask me why I know that this is negative, because I know that the P naught should be higher than the PL, right? P should be positive, L should be positive. This viscosity and the first phase viscosity with the second phase viscosity should be positive, right? So that means that this all should be less than 0. And that's the same with this one as well. This is once you see that this form in here, and then you know that for all the variable in here, they have to be positive, then you know that this is should be positive or above 0 basically. That's why you know that it will be it will change from negative to the positive. Okay, it will be negative from the at x equal minus b, and then it will be positive at x equal b. That's how I get this particular profile, right? So now, once you get the resulting velocity profile, then you can find out the plane at which the shear stress will be equal to 0. So that particular plane will be half b multiplied by the viscosity 1 minus viscosity 2 divided by the viscosity 1 plus viscosity 2. Right? So you know these things basically. So this one will be x equal that one. And then the next thing that you can find is the average velocity in each layer. So the average velocity in the liquid one, you can integrate from 0 to minus b, because that will be simply you are dealing with this from 0 to minus b, right? Strictly speaking, you have to multiply with this w, but this w does not change. So if you want to multiply that thing, then you can multiply with w on top, and then when you divide, you will divide by the w also multiplied by b. Okay, because the liquid phase 1 is from 0 to which one is the one? The one is in the bottom. So it's from 0 to minus b, right? So once you do everything, you integrate everything slowly, and then you put in everything. When I empty this out, meaning that this is the same, I just don't want to write it again in order for me to save my time. If you do it correctly, then you will get this particular term in here as the average velocity in the liquid phase, in the liquid 1. Okay, likewise you can also do it for the liquid 2 as well. Okay, you see that the integration is different. This integration is from minus b to 0, because your liquid 1 is from minus b to 0. Okay, and then this one in here is from 0 to b. Okay, then we can integrate all of this, then we will get this term in here. I think I don't need to go into the derivations in here, because I think it will be good for you if you can train yourself for the preparation for the take-home test 1, for example, so that you can do the calculations quite quickly during the take-home test time. I think I have mentioned everything. So this is basically, we have finished about 1/3 of our transfer phenomena. So if I recap it again in the week 1, we have introduced to you what the transfer phenomena is about. So transfer phenomena is a combination of the momentum transport, heat transport, and the mass transport. Okay, and then why they are being given all together in transfer phenomena is because they have a similarity, especially for the molecular transport contributions. Okay, so in momentum transport we have this Newton's law of viscosity. In heat transport we have the Fourier's law of heat conductions, and in the mass transfer we have a fixed law of binary diffusion. Okay, and then so in the first 4 weeks we have covered the momentum transport. Okay, and then we have gone through the details of the momentum transport. So in momentum transport, we have the shear stress as our molecular momentum transport contributor, and then we also have the convective transport contribution as well, where if there is a bulk flow of a fluid, then we will have that thing. And then we combine this molecular and convective contributions into something we call the combined momentum transport. Then what we know is that the molecular in momentum transport is different with the heat transport, because in momentum transport we have a quantity called tensor. So the tensor is something that is represented with this double subscript basically. So z and then z and then x and then z. So if the velocity has one direction, because the velocity has one directions, and the direction of the velocity will be equal to the directions of the momentum, but the momentum can be transported on the direction that is different with the momentum direction itself. That's why we have a term called a tensor. And then we have gone through the slowly through the 4 example. The first example, we talk about the flow of a falling film. So in that particular example, we basically illustrate the role of gravity forces and the use of the first 2 boundary conditions. And then on the flow through a circular tube, we discuss the use of the cylindrical coordinates, right? So that's why when we solve different problem, we have to adapt our coordinates with the coordinate that will make our derivations much more easier. So if our system has shape that can fit within the cylindrical shape, then we will solve using a cylindrical coordinate. If we have something that are similar with the sphere, then we will use a spherical coordinates. If we have a rectangular shape system, then we can stick with the Cartesian coordinates. Okay, and then the third example is basically we still use the same cylindrical coordinates, except that this time we use a different boundary conditions. Okay, and then in the last example that we will discuss for the momentum transport this afternoon is related with the applications of the last boundary conditions, where basically the shear stress and the velocity is continuous across the interface between different liquids. Okay, I hope everything that I have described today is clear to everybody. I would like to ask if you have any questions. Daniel, Alvin, Sakya, Jonathan, Rusiraka, Anjali, any questions for the material today or for the previous materials that I have given you? Anything? No? Everything is clear? And now just now I think that some of you already go ahead with the assignment, which is good. Which one is the positive and negative, Jonathan? You tell me what, because I talk about too many things, the positive and negative. You let me know which one is the positive and negative. Triangle. Oh, so this is not a triangle actually. This one is actually a profile of the shear stress in here. Okay, so if you look in here, Jonathan, the shear stress in here, you see, it has a negative and positive in here. So we assume that by the sake of putting it down in here, meaning that the shear stress in here will have a negative value. Okay, and then by the sake of putting it positive like this, then this will have a positive value. Now, you will ask me why. In here, this is the profile of the shear stress, meaning that if we start at x equal minus b, the shear stress will be negative, right? And then as we go up again, there will be a point where the shear stress is equal 0. At this particular point, the velocity should be maximum, right? And then it will go up, shear stress will go up, will go up, will go up, will go up. So the value in here is the value of the shear stress at x equal b is positive. The value of the shear stress at x equal minus b is negative, and we show it by drawing this in the, at this particular point, we will assume that the shear stress is 0. Okay, so if the shear stress is going to this direction, that means it has a magnitude of negative, right? On the other hand, if the shear stress is going in this direction, that means it has a positive direction. Did you get this, Jonathan? So then you will ask me, why, sir, how did you know that the shear stress is negative at this particular position at x equal minus b? or you will ask me, sir, how did you know that the shear stress is positive at this particular position at x equal b? I know it because I confirm it based on my calculation. So once I have the resulting momentum flux profile, I plug in x equal minus b. Once I plug in x equal minus b, then I know that this will be negative. Why this is negative? Because I know that the P naught should be higher than the PL in order for the flow to exist. If P naught is lower than the PL, that means there will be no flow from here to here. Because obviously the pressure has to be high in this side in order for the flow to go from here to here. You get it? Ready? So meaning that this particular term will be positive, right? And then B is positive, right? B should be positive. And then the L should be positive, right? This quantity cannot be negative. This quantity cannot the magnitude of this term cannot be negative. And then the viscosity in the first phase should also be positive. The viscosity in the second phase should also be positive. And this one should be positive and positive. So since we have a negative sign in here and this term in here all is positive, that means the shear stress at position of x equal minus b should be less than 0, right? So that's how I prove that this will be negative. So we are putting the profile in the right directions in here. It should be negative. Now, if you ask me why the shear stress in here should be positive, then I simply just plug in the value of the x equal b, basically, right? When I put it at x equal b, then the P naught minus PL multiplied by B L, then I can convert everything into these terms in here. And since this is positive, this is positive, this is positive, all is positive, then it will be positive. So if it is all positive, that means the shear stress at this particular position in here should be positive. But of course, I don't need my argument in here does not carry on any particular value because I don't need to assume. What I need is just to cross-check whether what is given in Bert's book is correct or not, right? So that's how I basically conclude that, and for the same token as well, you can see that this x will have a value that is above 0 because the viscosity of the liquid phase 1 will be higher than the viscosity in the liquid phase 2. That's why when they draw this particular profile, they show that maximum velocity should be at a value where it is above 0, basically, right? So everybody get it? Everybody get it, or I'm being too detail into the detail, basically. I think you need to know because at the same time, before you draw something like this, you also need to think about how you convert your mathematical expression and mathematical result into your physical systems. And there has to be a connection between your what is given by your conversion law and your postulations with your final mathematical result. If not, then all of this will not be of use. They will not have a relevance, basically. Okay. Any other questions? From besides Jonathan, how about Sakya, Alvin, Usiraka, Panchali? Any questions so far? All good with momentum transport? Because if this is good, that means we wrap up the momentum transport for this week, and next week we will move into the heat transport. Okay, I don't want to give you too long sessions because to me what is important is I go to explain to you the most important details of the example, rather than I go and fit much more materials to you, because that will not do you any good. Over the long term, what is important is your understanding onto the example. Okay? Because if I just give you a lot of equations and I give you a lot of materials without you being able to understand how to connect your derivations with your equations, and then why you do it like this, then it will not be of use for you later on when you try to solve a problem. That's why I rather, if you just want to go into the derivations as I explained, then you can always go into the YouTube video that I put in the Canvas already. But the point of the drop-in session is to reiterate the concepts that and basically check your understanding, so that when you hear it from me again, hopefully you will get a better understanding. If there is nothing, then I think I will just stop the recording here, and then I will call it off for this week. So anything that you don't know, please contact me. Don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, and don't forget your assignment 1 will be due next week. I'll see you guys again.